August 19, 1944. Wolf's Lair, East Prussia. General Oberst Alfred Jodl reviewed the mathematics of the Western Front. His staff had calculated the distance from Normandy to Patton's Spearhead, 400 miles. They had calculated American consumption rates. An armored division burns 150,000 gallons daily when advancing. A Sherman tank gets half a mile per gallon on roads, far worse cross-country. The calculation was inescapable. Patton's Third Army would halt within 48 hours. Physical laws cannot be violated, not even by American industry. What Jodl didn't know was that 125 miles away, a convoy was already rolling eastward, headlights blazing, in defiance of every military doctrine the Wehrmacht had written. Within 72 hours, Patton's supposedly immobilized tanks would crash through German positions at the Seine. Within a week, they would liberate Paris. Within a month, they would stand at the German border. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, and doctrine, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more in-depth World War analysis. Let's continue. The Wehrmacht's finest military minds were about to receive a lesson in industrial warfare, delivered by 6,000 trucks, driven by 23,000 Americans, three-quarters of them black soldiers serving in a segregated army who turned a highway into the most efficient military supply line in history. The Wehrmacht had invented blitzkrieg. They understood the tyranny of logistics better than anyone. In Russia, their own advance had foundered, not from Soviet resistance initially, but from the simple inability to move fuel across vast distances. German trucks broke down on Russian roads. Horse-drawn wagons, still 80% of Wehrmacht transport, couldn't match the speed of Panzer spearheads. Now, they watched the Americans face the same problem they had faced. And they were confident. One German panzer commander wrote in late August, "The Americans face the same logistical impossibility we faced in Russia. They have advanced 400 miles in 30 days. History teaches us what comes next: paralysis." German intelligence tracked American consumption rates meticulously. 12 divisions advancing on a 60-mile front. 12,000 tons of supplies required daily, transported 400 miles, over damaged roads, through a transportation network the Germans had systematically destroyed during their retreat. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. August 25, 1944. A requisitioned French chateau near Le Mans. Colonel Lorne A. Ayres, nicknamed Little Patton by his men, faced a room of skeptical officers from the Motor Transport Service. The math they presented was stark. Patton's Third Army was consuming supplies faster than any army in history. Traditional supply methods, railway transport, scheduled convoys, depot-to-depot distribution, had collapsed under the strain. Ayres' solution violated every logistics textbook ever written. 2 parallel one-way highways, one for loaded trucks moving forward, one for empties returning, 24-hour operations, headlights on, blackout discipline abandoned, a 5-minute convoy interval, 35 miles per hour minimum, mobile maintenance units every 50 miles. Military police authorized to remove any vehicle below 25 miles per hour. The name came from railway terminology. A red ball freight was an express shipment that took priority over everything else. Within 36 hours, the impossible was operational. At its peak, August 29, 1944, 132 truck companies operating 5,958 vehicles delivered over 12,000 tons in a single day. Over 82 days of operation, the Red Ball Express would move 412,193 tons across nearly 122 million ton miles. The backbone of the operation was the GMCCCKW 2.5-ton truck, the Deuce and a Half, a standardized all-wheel drive vehicle with a 2.5-ton off-road payload, a 40-gallon fuel tank, and roughly 300 miles of road range. General Motors had produced over 500,000 of them by war's end, more trucks than the entire German military possessed of all types combined. By late August, German reconnaissance units began reporting something unprecedented: a radio transmission from Aufklärungsabteilung 116. Continuous vehicle column. Headlights visible for 20 kilometers, no spacing, no blackout discipline, estimate 1,000 vehicles per hour. Americans have abandoned all military precaution. This violated everything German doctrine taught. Headlights at night invited air attack. Continuous columns presented perfect artillery targets. No spacing meant a single disabled truck could halt an entire convoy. Yet the Americans seemed unconcerned. General Lieutenant Edgar Feuchtinger, commanding the 21st Panzer Division, personally observed the red ball from concealed positions. His report to Army Group B reflected growing alarm. The enemy operates a supply system beyond our comprehension. They don't hide, don't disperse, don't follow any rules that we need to understand. What the Germans couldn't grasp was that American logistics operated on different principles entirely. Where German doctrine emphasized concealment, Americans relied on volume. Where Germans conserved vehicles, Americans assumed 20% mechanical failure and planned accordingly. Where Germans followed strict procedure, Americans improvised continuously. They burned more fuel delivering the fuel than many German armies received for all purposes. In post-war debriefings, captured German staff officers would state that they had been defeated more by American transportation than by American tactics. But the mathematics ignored the biological cost. The trucks could run 24 hours a day. The drivers could not. Regulations specified 20 hours of driving per 24-hour period. Reality was different. Many drivers reported going 24 to 36 hours with minimal sleep. Some pushed further. The Army issued amphetamines to keep them awake. After 48 hours without sleep, the road starts to move. Drivers reported phantom obstacles, hallucinated German tanks in the tree lines. They weren't fighting the Wehrmacht anymore. They were fighting their own nervous systems. Accidents killed hundreds during the Red Ball's operational period. Trucks collided in fog, overturned on damaged roads, burned when overheated engines ignited fuel loads. The brakes were the worst. On downhill stretches, overloaded trucks experienced brake fade, the friction surfaces overheating until they stopped gripping. Smoke would pour from the wheel wells. Drivers faced a choice: bail out at speed or ride a fuel-laden truck down a hill crowded with vehicles. A single 2.5-ton truck loaded with gasoline cans carried roughly 700 to 1,000 gallons, 44 megajoules of chemical energy per kilogram of fuel. A hit that set off the load produced a fireball that could ignite adjacent vehicles and cook off ammunition. Yet morale remained high. These men understood they were making history. And they were fighting two wars simultaneously. Of the 23,000 drivers who operated the Red Ball Express, approximately 3/4 were African American soldiers, serving in a still segregated army. Men who couldn't eat in white restaurants or use white facilities in much of America were keeping the most celebrated white general's army in motion. They knew what the Nazis thought of them, which made them drive harder. Every mile proved Hitler's racial theories wrong. Every ton delivered was a refutation of the ideology they were helping to destroy. They were fighting racism with truck keys, defeating Nazi propaganda through superior performance. The drivers developed their own culture. They painted slogans on their trucks: Patton's Blood Bank, Hitler, Here We Come, Detroit to Berlin Express. They created their own traffic rules. Slower vehicles pulled off immediately. Mechanical failures were pushed into ditches. Any truck below 20 miles per hour was considered a roadblock. Corporal John L. Houston drove continuously for 48 hours, delivering ammunition to the 2nd Armored Division at Chartres. He fell asleep at the wheel 3 times. Other drivers revived him. He kept going. Private Booker T. Washington's truck caught fire from overheated brakes while carrying medical supplies. Procedure required abandoning it. Instead, he drove the burning vehicle 2 miles to a field hospital, jumping out as flames reached the cab. The supplies saved wounded soldiers from both armies. These stories multiplied across the operation: individual initiative, calculated risk-taking, mission accomplishment over regulatory compliance. German prisoners, forced to load Red Ball trucks as laborers, found their worldview shattered, working alongside African American sergeants who calculated weight distributions faster than German engineers, who spoke better English than German English instructors, who treated prisoners fairly despite everything Nazi propaganda had told them about racial behavior. The success of the Red Ball Express created pressure for military desegregation that would culminate 3 years later. These soldiers had proved in France what they always knew. Given the tools and opportunity, they would match anyone. The Red Ball Express consumed vehicles at rates that would have paralyzed any other military. Average vehicle life, 10,000 miles. Normal expectancy, 30,000. Hundreds of trucks sidelined each day for maintenance, engines replaced by the hundreds weekly, tires worn through by the thousands. Yet the operation never slowed. When trucks broke down, mobile maintenance units performed roadside repairs. The rule was simple: 15 minutes to fix or push it into the ditch. Parts were cannibalized from vehicles deemed unrepairable. In the German army, if a truck broke, you fixed it. In the Red Ball, if a truck broke and couldn't be fixed fast, you set it on fire so it wouldn't block the road. To a German observer, this wasn't logistics. It was industrial heresy. But ships arrived weekly at French ports carrying hundreds of new trucks. Replacement drivers were trained in 2 days and thrown into convoys. Americans were destroying more trucks weekly than the Wehrmacht possessed in France. Yet their transport capacity increased rather than decreased. They had achieved something Germans thought impossible: logistics faster than consumption. During the reduction of Metz in September 1944, XX Corps artillery fired tens of thousands of rounds in 24-hour bombardments. The Red Ball Express delivered every round, plus surplus. German artillery defending Metz was rationed to 50 rounds per gun per day. The disparity was overwhelming. American guns fired for hours while German artillery officers conserved ammunition for emergencies that never stopped coming. German prisoners mentioned the sound, a low, constant drone that never stopped, day or night. The rumble of inline-six engines, gear whine, the occasional backfire echoing against hedgerows. Wehrmacht soldiers could hear American trucks all night, every night, endless motors, endless supplies. They had 3 rounds per rifle, while Americans were bringing millions of rounds forward. The sound itself became psychological warfare. American units began broadcasting recorded truck engine sounds toward German lines when actual convoys weren't present. German units reported these phantom convoys as real. In one German infantryman's account, "We lay in foxholes near the Seine, listening to the rumble of trucks beyond the horizon, thinking, they have more petrol than we have cartridges." Feldmarschall Gerd von Rundstedt, supreme German commander in the West, received comprehensive intelligence on the Red Ball Express in mid-September. After studying the reports, he summoned his staff. "We face something beyond military solution. The Americans have created a supply system that makes distance irrelevant. Our strategy assumed a culminating point where advancing forces outrun supplies. That point doesn't exist for them." His operations officer suggested interdicting the routes with the remaining Luftwaffe. Von Rundstedt's response: "With what? They have 6,000 trucks. If we destroy 1,000, which we cannot, they replace them in a week. We would need to destroy 200 trucks daily just to match their production. We don't have 200 aircraft total." On November 16, 1944, with rail lines partially restored, the Red Ball Express was officially discontinued. The operation that was supposed to last 10 days had continued for 82. Total cargo delivered, 412,193 tons. Total distance covered, nearly 122 million ton-miles. Vehicles employed, 5,958 at peak. Drivers involved, 23,000. Operating days, 82. The massive operation, 23,000 men, 6,000 vehicles, hundreds of installations, dissolved in 72 hours. Troops reassigned, vehicles redistributed, routes returned to civilian use. Germans required months to create smaller operations, and years to dissolve them. Americans built what they needed, used it, discarded it, and built something better. When German generals surrendered in May 1945, many cited the Red Ball Express specifically. One captured panzer commander told interrogators, "When we understood your logistics capacity, we knew the war was lost. You could supply armies faster than we could destroy them. The Red Ball Express was a weapon against which we had no defense. Feldmarshal Albert Kesselring was asked what most surprised him about American forces. His answer: "Not your tanks, not your planes, your trucks. The highways of France still bear the scars, ruts worn by overloaded trucks, bridges hastily repaired, roadsides where abandoned vehicles rusted into the hedgerows. But the greatest monument to the operation is the speed of Allied victory." The Red Ball Express proved that in the industrial age, victory belongs not to the bravest soldiers or the brightest generals, but to the nation that can deliver the most supplies, the fastest, the farthest. The German generals who calculated American logistical failure in August 1944 signed surrender documents in May 1945. Defeated by 23,000 truck drivers who had revolutionized warfare at 35 miles per hour. 23,000 Americans, most of them black men denied equal rights in the country they served, who proved that in modern war, the convoy matters more than the column. That logistics is not support. It is the main effort. One German officer, watching an endless stream of trucks from the roadside as a prisoner, said it plainest: "We prepared for everything. Your tanks, your planes, your ships. We never prepared for your trucks." The answer rolled past him at 5-minute intervals, driven by exhausted Americans who were rewriting the rules of warfare, one delivery at a time. If you found this story valuable, subscribe for more deep dives into the operational history of World War. The battles that decided the war often receive the least attention in Western histories, and that's exactly where we focus. Drop a comment below. What war operation should we cover next?